Everybody, hopefully this will work this time. I tried it 5 times yesterday and it wouldn't work for recording the lecture. So, Chapter 3, the most important things you need to understand are the law of accelerating returns, which states that changes and adoption of new technology doesn't happen in a linear fashion. It will start off slow and then we'll have a spike, and then it might plateau off again. And when it plateaus, that technology needs to change, transition, or it risks dying. And in my lecture slides, you'll see on slide number 6 a pattern of growth, maturity, and possible death. And when I say die, it doesn't mean that that site or a piece of technology completely goes away. It can change. So in this example, I use MySpace and Facebook. So Facebook took over how MySpace was originally done. So MySpace had to change. And now it's an artist community. The implications of Kurzweil's law of accelerated returns is that growth is rapid. We tend to overestimate the benefits short term, but we underestimate the long-term benefits. So we don't always think about what's going to happen 10 years from now. And quite frankly, you have to deal with the change. You have to be able to adapt and roll with these changes if you're going to keep up. You need to understand technological determinism versus social shaping of technology. Technological determinism states that technology determines where society goes. So, in other words, you don't really have a choice. When new technology comes out, you have to do it. You have to adopt it. You have to figure out a way to use it, or you'll fall behind. And technology drives society. Where the opposite is social shaping of technology, where it's believed that society and technology are hand in hand. They change with each other. So what society needs, technology provides. And make sure you're clear on the differences between those two because they are on the exam. And overall, you want to remember that technology is humanity. I have a slide, number 11, in the lecture slides that says, yet new technologies just realize our ancient propensity to connect to other humans, albeit with electrons flowing through cyberspace rather than conversation drifting through air. Even astonishing advances in communication technology like the printing press, the telephone, and the internet do not take us away from this past. They draw us closer to it. Meaning that these means of technology provide us more ability to connect with our past. It gives us more information. Information doesn't have to strictly be told through storytelling. It can now be housed in the technology. The book talks about being natural-born cyborgs, and when I use a term like cyborg, that doesn't mean the Terminator. That means that we naturally use tools. So, say I have this screwdriver that I use to put together a fan. This screwdriver is an extension of me, and that makes me a cyborg. I use a tool to extend myself to accomplish a task. This is done because our brains are able to adapt and change, and that term is called plasticity. It's when a new tool comes about, our brain is able to adapt and change to the use of that tool. And the internet specifically allows us to have extended minds. So it's a place for us to leave information to share with others. The way in which we use technology, there are two different terms. There's transparent technology and opaque. Opaque technologies are ones that we have to think about when we use. So think about getting a new gaming system, and you have to learn how to use the game controller because every system is different on what button does what. So you have to think about what you're doing while you're playing the game. But later with practice, that controller becomes transparent in that you don't have to think about it anymore. It's just second nature. Another example I like to give is learning to type on a keyboard. When you first learn to type, you have to look at the keyboard, look at your hands, and think about where's the J, where's the M, what finger do I use to go to the number 1. But over time with practice, it becomes more transparent, and you look at your hands less and less, and you're able to type without thinking about where the keys are on the keyboard. Scaffolding is combining the best of what humans do with the best of what machines do. So the example I use in class for scaffolding is CAPTCHAs. So basically a CAPTCHA is a scanned material, and maybe there's a word in that document that's not entirely clear. So that's pulled out, and to add security to it, it's distorted even more. Maybe a line is put through it, it's angled, whatever, and then for you have to type in that word in order to go into a website or to make a purchase is when CAPTCHAs are most commonly used. And that's a way to help with scanned material that have been scanned into the internet. Then that corrected word is placed into the document and it's clear for people to read. But it's also a security measure. Make sure that you fully understand uses and gratifications theory. That's what this week's discussion question is surrounded or is about. But basically that theory says that you have a need, be it an individual need, a social need, an environmental need, and you turn to technology to fulfill that need. And then there are effects that come from that, and they can be intended or unintended, and sometimes both. So an example I like to use is, say you have a need for social interaction. Say you're single and you sign up on a dating website. You're fulfilling that social need for companionship. So you turn to, say, Match.com on your laptop. So there's your use. You talk to people. You meet up with someone for a first date after you've talked to them for a while. Your intended effect is that you've met a companion. You've met someone that you can spend time with and get to know. Maybe an unintended effect is that the date doesn't go well, and the person that you thought they were on the computer aren't who they are in real life, and you realize, oh wait, maybe this isn't someone I want to be a companion with, and then you start all over again. So make sure you fully understand uses and gratifications theory. It is, again, it's in on the exam, and it's also something that we'll talk about throughout the chapters, throughout the rest of the semester. You also want to consider, is face-to-face really the gold standard? Most people believe that computers and technology are destroying society, and because we don't talk to each other face-to-face anymore. But is it really? Do we have to talk face-to-face to have good communication? Do we have to talk face-to-face to build a relationship? Can CMC provide us with alternatives that are positive, that we can still build relationships? I would say yes, but you need to decide for yourself, is face-to-face really the gold standard? I can have relationships with friends that are in other states by talking to them on the phone, by texting, by talking to them using Facebook chat. I can mimic my nonverbals through chat using emoticons. So is face-to-face really the gold standard when we have these options that pretty closely mimic face-to-face conversations? They're not perfect, but then again, face-to-face communication isn't perfect either. So, through this chapter, again, you need to understand how we use media as a tool, how we are natural-born cyborgs. You need to understand the theories of technological determinism versus social shaping of technology, and understand uses and gratifications theory, so how we use technology to fulfill our own social needs. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next week again for Chapter 4.